some thoughts and observations about helping kids understand time and learn how to tell time. I'm preoccupied with time lately because I've noticed, kind of funny story, that when I'm in conversation with adults or perusing my daily news sources, there's an awful lot, as you know, in the news about professional people, professional parents trying to manage their children amidst the distractions and disruptions of little children in their home and trying to keep their careers on track, and frustrated. And when I talk to the little people who are the focus of my attention and concern on a daily basis, oftentimes they'll say, my parents are always interrupting me. I can't get anything done. So I've laughed to myself in my isolation many times about that happening with adults and with kids. And I think partly that's because kids are imitating what they hear their parents talking about. And I think sometimes it's because when I have the privilege of talking to one of the kids in my class, they've often been pulled away from something they would rather do than go to a scheduled meeting with their teacher. So they say they're getting disrupted. And also, two things are true. One is that young kids, of course, can't tell time. That's a problem. And the other thing is that time has kind of lost its meaning for all of us in the pandemic. I noticed that in my own life, and I'm sure it's true for children. So I wanted to offer a few suggestions with great humility. If there are experts on parenting and teaching in a pandemic, it's not obvious to me right now who they are. I'm certainly not an expert as a parent or as a teacher. However, I have the good fortune to meet with a lot of people who are smart and creative and excellent educators and excellent parents. So I thought I would share some of them with you because I feel like I've been in the presence of intelligence and genius on more than one occasion. So parents know that children younger than 6 mostly mark time and distance by landmarks in the day. So it's in the news much, and you already knew that a routine is very important because that's how children determine the course of their day. And it's usually pretty simple. Get up, breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime. And then there's details that are added, after lunch, we have rest time. After dinner, we have rest time, and then we brush our teeth, and then we take a bath, and then we have a story, and then we go to bed. But, it's a basic structure that stays in place. And for most kids, it's pretty easy for it to stay in place now because there's nothing else to do. The analogy I noticed recently is that on one of these beautiful spring days, we went for a bike ride. My children are older now, but we passed young kids, many of them who still had training wheels on their bikes. And very often they were screaming on the bike trail on the prairie path. And my daughter, who's older and knows her way around now, commented, I remember being on my bike and not knowing where we were, and you don't know how far you are from home. And I thought, yes, I hadn't thought of it that way. Little people who mark distance by landmark, if you get out of their familiar neighborhood, they don't have any idea how far they are from home. And it's the same for time. When you take children out of their routine, they don't have any idea what's going to happen next, and it's scary for them. So I know that many of you have already done this because our virtual conversations put me in your home. And I know that many of you already have bulletin boards that have a daily schedule and a weekly schedule. Many times for kids who can't read yet, you do that with pictures and let them know what's going to happen in a given day and in a week, or a whiteboard. And it's helpful, you already know, to be conversational about that, to refer to the schedule and point, here is where we are, and this is what's going to come next. What I would add, or my suggestion would be, because our days are so long right now and there's so little variation, it's helpful to add additional markers in a week, or to give things in a week, markers on the calendar for kids to look forward to. So some of the things that I've noticed lately, one of my good friends has Fancy Friday. So on Friday, she gets up and with her mom, they get dressed up. And they spend the day with fancy hairdos and dresses. I have another good friend who's having Superhero Saturdays. So they're looking forward to, they mark each day with a successful vegetables or a challenge. So they have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And if all goes well, they have Superhero Saturday where they celebrate by making something celebratory together. I also have nearby friends who are starting the week with 5 rocks that they found, smooth rocks, and they're painting them, 1 rock each day. And then on Saturdays, they have a Saturday rock walk, and they leave these little painted bundles of, little rocks in the neighborhood. And it can either be just a gift to the universe, or I've also noticed that sometimes, when kids give things away, they really would like them back. So sometimes it turns into a rock hunt. They go back out later and gather all the things. But it's, they've marked each day until the weekend with a rock that they've painted. And you can do it with food. Lots of folks like Taco Tuesday. For a period of time in my own family, we had Sunday soup. So I would bake the bread, my husband would make the soup, and we would have soup on Sunday. Just ideas. Families are different, and I'm sure that you can come up with your own ideas. The point being, though, that it's a way of adding some variation and joy to our routine, because the days all feel the same right now. It's also, so that's one area of thinking. The other area of thinking is that it is really a good time to work on learning how to tell time, with the understanding for parents of young children that they're not going to do it very well for quite some time. Time is very abstract. There's nothing really tangible for kids to hold on to. So time as a parenting concept, it's more useful to think of it as a developmental milestone than as something that, like an academic thing that you can master. It's helpful to help them think about it, but that you expect that it's going to take a long time. Things that are helpful. In elementary, they require, but even at a young age, it's helpful to have either a clock or watch, or both, that have the old-fashioned analog minute and hour hand that turn clockwise, so that you can talk about clockwise movement, and so that kids who are trying to study time and begin to understand it can see movement and see how the movement corresponds to their day, to the things that they're doing. Another thing that's helpful, in addition to the clock or watch, is to practice skip counting by 5s. And you can do that either just as a voice game, 5, 10, 15, 20, you can go to 60. Or one of the fine parents in my class had set up a skip. We have bead chains in our classroom, but you can play a similar game with poker chips or rocks or marbles in 5-minute or 5-item increments. So 5 poker chips, and then a stop, and then 5. So you're going to count 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 60. Winding around your room is kind of fun. Marbles or pennies would work. But of course, the idea with that would then be that when it's time to tell time, they're a little bit more able to converse. Because conversationally, we usually do it in 5-minute increments. Not without exception, but usually. At school, when we have a 6-year-old or some of the older kids who are working more diligently with learning time and on into elementary, we do have paper, which you could easily imitate at home. You could Google, download, and print, or you could just draw circles. This is what it looks like. 4 on a sheet. And I wrote the numbers in just to make it clear what I was talking about, but at school, the kids would do that. They would write the numbers on. We also have this kind of paper that just has a clock, and then like the digital pattern, and then the lines. So the things that kids are working on are drawing on the hour hand and the minute hand. And then underneath we do o'clock, we do half past, we do quarter past, and quarter till. You could get more detailed depending on your success rate. But at school in the very beginning, we would either draw the hands on the clock and invite the child to write the time underneath, or we would write 3 o'clock and ask the child to put the time above. So the mistakes are the things that they have to practice on, the difference in length between the hour hand and the minute hand, and getting the line straight, which you can do with a ruler. And then also for handwriting, learning how to write the times underneath. And then of course, the obvious thing is that in your routine at home, you can mark time conversationally. So for example, you could say, in 15 minutes, it will be lunchtime. And then my friend, in 5 minutes, will be gathering in the kitchen to have lunchtime. It's lunchtime. So even doing all of these things, I say it like it's going to be successful, but you already know that when it's lunchtime, kids are still going to feel like you're interrupting the work that they're doing, because they're just learning. It's just beginning. And I think my feeling is that on a level they appreciate the adult gesture, the acknowledgement that you're interrupting their work. They still can't tell time very successfully, so it's not going to stop the conflict that comes with having young children and adult schedules that are different. And also, I would just remind you that for kids, I think speaking for most of us who work with children for so many years, one of the joys of working with young kids is that their sense of time is so immediate. They have the gift that most of us wish we could regain of just getting completely absorbed in the time and the moment and the person, the thing that's right in front of them. So on the one hand, it's a limitation of childhood, and also it's kind of a thing that we hate to lose. So two things are going on. You're helping them to acquire adult and necessary skill of telling time, but also just cherishing the time when that time has no meaning for them. They can still get their full, even if you have a child with a compromised attention, they can probably still get absorbed in a task that they have chosen for themselves. Last thing I would add to that is that even though time stretches out now indefinitely, and for most of us adults, it's very disorienting not to know what the future holds. When you are offering your kids a simultaneous opportunity to learn about time, but also a grateful appreciation of their lack of awareness of time, you're helping them to build memories so that when your children grow up and they think back on this time, the pandemic time, I don't know what history will call this time, they will have a felt experience, good memories of many months when they were young and at home and time stood still. Blessings. Hope it works.